Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to Martial Moves Academy. Today we've got a huge story that's been blowing up across the internet. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss a second of this. So grab your favorite snack, settle in, and let's jump right into it because we're talking about none other than Jake Paul. Yes, you heard that right. Jake Paul, the YouTube star turned boxing sensation, is once again making headlines. But this time, it's not for a fight. What we're about to discuss could shake the entire boxing world to its core. The feds have uncovered shocking evidence at his house, leaving everyone stunned. Stick around until the end because what we're going to reveal is bound to leave you speechless. Alright, let's dive into it. The rise of Jake Paul, from YouTuber to boxing sensation. Before we get into the details of the investigation, let's take a moment to rewind and talk about how Jake Paul got to where he is today. Whether you love him or hate him, Jake Paul is a name you just can't ignore. This guy skyrocketed from making wild prank videos on YouTube to becoming a legitimate contender in the world of professional boxing. His journey was unexpected for many, especially when he started taking down trained fighters. At first, people dismissed him as just another celebrity trying to make noise. But after he started knocking out real fighters, the world began to take him seriously. It was no longer just entertainment. Jake Paul was proving that he could actually fight. But, as we all know, with great fame comes even greater controversy, and Jake has always been no stranger to that. Whether it's his wild parties, outrageous social media antics, or intense rivalries with other fighters, Jake has always found a way to keep his name in the headlines. This time, however, he's in the news for something far more serious. The investigation begins. What led the feds to Jake Paul's door? Now you're probably wondering, what on earth led federal agents to Jake Paul's house? Here's what we know so far. This all began as part of an ongoing investigation. While the exact details are still unclear, multiple sources have indicated that the authorities have been looking into suspicious activities, and Jake Paul's name somehow became connected to it. It's important to note that Jake Paul is no stranger to legal trouble. If you remember, his Calabasas mansion was raided back in 2020, connected to some other wild incidents. But this time, things seem a lot more serious. The feds apparently had reason to believe that there was something in Jake's house tied to a much larger investigation. What were they looking for? So, what exactly were the feds hoping to find? This is where things start to get really interesting. After hours of searching through his mansion, they reportedly seized several items that could potentially have massive implications, not just for Jake Paul, but for the entire boxing world. According to various reports, these items could be linked to illegal activities. We're talking about things like underground fight networks, illegal gambling operations, and even possible money laundering. While we don't have all the details yet, the mere fact that federal agents took away evidence is a huge deal. This could spell serious trouble for Jake Paul, both personally and professionally. The boxing world in shock. What could this mean for Jake's career? The boxing community is still trying to process the news. Just imagine, Jake Paul, who has been one of the most talked about figures in recent boxing history, now being tied to something far beyond boxing or social media drama. His name is now being whispered in connection with potentially illegal activities. What could this mean for his career? Could this be the end of Jake Paul as we know him in the ring? As things currently stand, it's hard to say. But one thing is for sure, this could have serious repercussions on his future in boxing, particularly when it comes to future matches. The fan base reacts, divided opinions emerge. Let's take a moment to talk about the fans. As you might expect, Jake's fan base is completely divided on this. On one side, you have his die-hard supporters who believe Jake is innocent until proven guilty. They're flooding social media with messages of support, insisting that this is just another attempt to bring him down. You'll see posts like, "We stand with you, Jake," and "Jake Paul will rise again." These fans have been loyal through thick and thin, and they're not ready to jump ship just yet. But on the other hand, there's a large group of people who are saying, "I told you so." These critics have never been fans of Jake, and they see this as yet another example of him getting involved in shady business. For them, this is a moment of validation, something they've been expecting all along. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready, because the internet is on fire with one of the most intense, explosive, and downright jaw-dropping rants of the year. That's right, we're talking about Joe Rogan unleashing on none other than the ever-controversial Jake Paul. You won't believe the things Joe had to say. Stick around because we're about to dive deep into this fiery showdown. What sparked it, why Rogan decided to go all out, and how Jake Paul has responded. Trust me, you won't want to miss a second of this heated drama. Before we dive into Joe Rogan's blazing commentary, let's take a quick step back to understand why Jake Paul is even in this conversation. Jake Paul is no stranger to controversy. Rising to fame as a YouTuber with viral pranks and crazy antics, Jake transitioned from internet sensation to professional boxer, amassing millions of both fans and critics along the way. His antics have often landed him in the spotlight, but in recent years, it's his unexpected boxing success that has kept him there. From knocking out former UFC fighters to calling out some of the biggest names in combat sports, Jake has made waves that have people questioning his legitimacy as a boxer. Is he for real? Does he have what it takes to stand with the pros? Critics, including seasoned fighters and fans, have debated this for years, and now Joe Rogan has entered the conversation with some serious thoughts. The build-up. Why Joe Rogan reached his boiling point. So what led to Joe Rogan's epic rant? This isn't the first time Joe has voiced his opinion on Jake Paul, but things really came to a head in early 2024. Jake, never one to shy away from bold claims, has continued to push the narrative that he's a force to be reckoned with in the fight world. But it was his recent assertion that he could take on high-level MMA fighters and win that tipped the scales. This bold statement struck a chord with Rogan, who has long been a respected voice in the MMA community. Known for his dedication to the sport and the fighters who pour their heart and soul into it, Joe has a deep appreciation for the discipline, training, and sheer effort it takes to succeed in combat sports. And Jake Paul's approach, which often feels like it's more about fame and fortune than respect for the sport, was enough to push Joe over the edge. The disrespect to the sport and the fighters who work tirelessly to reach the top was too much for Joe to stay silent about. 3. The rant. Joe Rogan destroys Jake Paul. Now, the moment we've all been waiting for. The epic rant that took over the internet. It all went down on Joe Rogan's massively popular podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience. When a guest brought up Jake Paul's latest claims, Joe didn't hold back. What followed was one of the most intense takedowns we've ever seen. Joe called Jake out for being disrespectful to both boxing and MMA, likening his career to a sideshow compared to the rigorous, dedicated lives of true fighters. He wasn't just angry about Jake's attitude. Rogan was furious at what he felt was the cheapening of combat sports for the sake of fame and money. "This isn't about the sport anymore," Rogan said. "It's a circus." These words set off a firestorm online, as fans of both Jake and Rogan chimed in on social media. Jake Paul's response, defiant as ever. So, how did Jake Paul respond? As expected, Jake didn't back down. Never one to shy away from controversy, Jake took to social media to fire back at Rogan, calling him out for being out of touch and even challenging him to a public debate on the matter. He doubled down on his claims, maintaining that he is indeed capable of competing with elite fighters and that his success speaks for itself. The back and forth between Jake Paul and Joe Rogan has only intensified, with fans of both sides adding fuel to the fire. As the drama continues to unfold, it's clear that this is far from over. Jake Paul's response. Defiant as ever. So how did Jake Paul respond? As expected, Jake didn't back down. Never one to shy away from controversy, Jake took to social media to fire back at Rogan, calling him out for being out of touch and even challenging him to a public debate on the matter. He doubled down on his claims, maintaining that he is indeed capable of competing with elite fighters and that his success speaks for itself. The back and forth between Jake Paul and Joe Rogan has only intensified, with fans of both sides adding fuel to the fire. As the drama continues to unfold, it's clear that this is far from over. Conclusion.